Hey everyone, Lance here. Is the weekend of August the 8th, 2014. And I thank you for watching. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this week, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict continues. Now, I'm actually taping this on a Saturday, and as of this taping, they have not gone back to the negotiation table at this time. Now, I want to talk about this a little bit more in depth, sort of. Now, apparently there was a ceasefire last weekend, but the details were so sketchy. It was a 2-hour ceasefire? Was it a 3-hour ceasefire? That one side told the other? I'm not even sure. Now, there was another ceasefire during the week, and what happened there was they had it for 3 days, as we all know, and the talks actually broke down over in Cairo, Egypt. Now, this has been ongoing for a minute. Now, what I'm going to do is, and I don't normally do this, I have a video of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and he's on the PR game. So let's watch this entire video.
Because of your geographical location, surrounded by many enemies, you're here in the Middle East, and we could run off the list: Islamic Jihad, Hamas, Hezbollah. You have Muslim Brotherhood, you have ISIS, you have Al Qaeda. A lot of groups, radical Islam. You have no choice. You have to understand radical Islam. Do you think the world, even in a post 9/11 world, I wonder at times if people know the extent of the threat of radical Islam?
I hope they do. I mean, the evidence is abundant. What you have right now is this terrific conflagration in the Middle East. You have ISIS taking swaths of the Iraq, in Syria. It's now pushing into right close to Lebanon and perhaps into Jordan. That's very, very dangerous. And ISIS is basically a sister movement of Al Qaeda. You have Hezbollah, radical Shiites fighting radical Sunnis. You have Hamas, and you have in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and in North Africa, plethora of Islamist terrorist groups. Now, look, they're all fighting among themselves, but they all agree that once they vanquish their Muslim moderates who are there, who don't share their views, and they behead them and do horrible things to them. And then they have to get to Israel, which is the western country in the region.
Always hear wipe Israel off the map.
Yeah, always. But we're the small Satan. For all of them, you're the great Satan. The radical Shiites are backed by Iran. The radical Sunnis have various backers and so on. And these people fight among themselves who'll be the king of the hill. But one thing they agree on, it's going to be an Islamist hill. And it's going to be a world dominated by their unforgiving creed, their violent ideology, which rejects modernity, rejects human rights, puts women as chattel. All minorities are subjugated or eliminated. I mean, it is a terrible, terrible worldview with these competing sects who want to enforce it on the rest of humanity. Those of humanity who will be left alive. A good portion will be destroyed. Now, this is the danger, that you have 21st century weapons with early medieval doctrines here, wedded together. And this is a great danger for the world. Israel is on the front line facing this terrible force and should be given support. And who is the world supporting? Is it supporting Hamas, a terrorist tyranny of the worst kind that is cruel to not only to us but to its own people? Or is it supporting this vibrant, beleaguered democracy, Israel, that is trying to legitimately defend itself? And I think everybody should ask themselves that question, because by supporting Israel, you're supporting yourself. But I think the greatest danger we face is that these Islamist terrorist groups or nations have the weapons of mass death. Look at the danger that we face when they have rockets and missiles. Now imagine what kind of danger we'd have if they can put a nuclear warhead on top of these missiles. That's the danger that is coming from Iran. If in this great melee, in this great conflagration, this great battle, one of these militants, in this case the Shiite militants, backed by Iran, sponsored by Iran, if they have an Iranian nuclear umbrella, if Iran itself can intimidate the U.S. with intercontinental ballistic missiles carrying nuclear warheads, then we bring history into a different threshold altogether. And I know many of the things I've been saying over the years, people have said, well, you know, he's just saying it. Now think about it. This is a danger I've been pointing to. It's not a spin. It's not a whim. It is a clinical diagnosis of a pathological movement that is sweeping our area but will soon come to a theater near you. It has to be stopped now. The ones who are standing right now in front of this tsunami is Israel. Support Israel. Support yourself. And it's not Israel's battle, it's your battle. It's the battle of France. Because it's the same battle. If they succeed here, if Israel is the one that's blamed here and not the terrorists, if we don't stand together, then this terror plague will come to you. It's just a question of time. It will come to you. It will come to France.
You think so? It will come to France?
It's already on the move. It'll come, it'll move. Because if it's seen as successful, if they can target democratic societies, get them blamed, get them to break their solidarity, when what they know is the moral case that Israel is making, then it will encourage them to move from one step at a time. It's right now across your waters. It's already in North Africa.
It'll come to.
Now, there's a reason why I brought that video up. He's playing the PR machine to get everybody behind him. Now, he's going about it all the wrong way because he's trying to use the quote-unquote bully pulpit. And there's a better way to go. And as far as the Zionist government there, because let's call it what it is, that's what they are, just come out and say it. You want the land. And I've been getting into debates all this week with people about that. And I say, ask yourself this question. If you're the Palestinians, and if you're getting everything taken away from you, and you're gonna fight, and you have nowhere to set up, of course you're gonna do it in big cities and set up there. That's just human nature. It has nothing to do with human shields, nothing as far as that. Now, basically, what's going on is the world can see past Israel's BS. And Netanyahu knows it. That's why I showed this video what he's trying to do. Now, you can make comments if you're watching this on YouTube in the comments box below. For us on Roku, you can always go to my page and make a comment there about this show here and on this particular topic. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be really bad. And I mean really bad this time. And it's going to be interesting to see how the world is going to handle it. Hey everybody, Lance here. Did you know I have a GoFundMe campaign? Stop on by and help out the real deal. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Two big things happened at the end of this week. And both had to be in regards to the NCAA. Now the first one, as I'm going to talk about first, is they voted for autonomy. Now basically what that means, if you're not a big college sports fan, 5 conferences, which are the Big Ten, the Pac-10, the ACC, the Big 12, and the SEC, voted to have more autonomy for themselves. And let me tell you, as somebody who watched college sports, that is a bad, bad move. Because this move is made over one thing, and that's money. Now, I'm watching some videos, and I see some articles on Alabama's head coach Nick Saban stating that only the quote-unquote Power 5 teams, the ones I mentioned, should only play each other. And let me tell you why that's problematic. It's going to be all about scheduling at that point. I mean, their schools outright refuse to play other schools. I mean, schedules are booked, and they have to play the so-called G5 schools, and they have no choice, and they just can't figure out how to do it. Now, with this whole autonomy thing, I've always said this. The G5 should bluff them. Go ahead, break away from the NCAA, but you get no NCAA basketball tournament or even the money from it, no Frozen Four, no College World Series. You get none of that, and you lose tax-exempt status. Now, here's what's going to happen with this. Everybody's saying that Congress is not going to get involved because a lot of the members there with the said schools in the P5. I beg to differ. It's going to be the court of public opinion, and they're going to have to get involved. And the NCAA know it, and that's a loser. Now, what also happened this week was the Ed O'Bannon case. Now, he was asking for no money in this, so keep that in mind. This all had to do with likenesses on video games, like the NCAA series. Now, this is going to be interesting because this ties into pay the players, excuse me. Now, I don't know what they're going to do, and I'm totally against stipends. Now, I have a video here where a gentleman actually talks about this a little bit more in depth, so let's take a look.
Friday, August 8th, 2014, running commentary number 2381. So, some weeks or months ago, I talked about Schooled, the price of college sports. A documentary, an excellent documentary that examines the NCAA system, basically. College sports within the NCAA framework and everything. And how exploitative that particular system has become. And these ideas, the student athlete, where that concept comes from. That it came from not wanting to have to pay students, athletes, who are playing sports, any kind of workman's comp if they were to get injured in the course of playing. And lots of other things, the fact that they can't get money even if video game companies, for example, use their likeness. And that is where the Ed O'Bannon case comes in. It was talked about at the end of that documentary, and today there was a ruling. And they ruled in favor of Ed O'Bannon against the NCAA. However, there is a small victory for the NCAA in there where they put a cap on the amount of money that students can be paid for the likeness of their image. However, the judge said that it must be at least $5,000 per year that the student participates in competitive sports. So that's good. It's progress. The arguments that the NCAA makes against this are just... They make me mad reading them, like physically. I was just like, I can't believe that they say this stuff with a straight face. So here are some of the things. The head of the Big Ten, which my alma mater, the University of Maryland, is now a member of. The head of the Big Ten painted a dire picture of what college sports would look like in his testimony, saying his conference would likely cease to exist and the Rose Bowl would probably not be played. I'm actually backtracking here to the previous paragraph. Witnesses called by the NCAA spoke of the education provided to athletes as payment for their services and said that the college model has functioned well for more than a century. They contended that paying players would make college sports less popular and could force schools to cut other programs funded by the hundreds of millions of dollars taken in by big-time athletics. I think those arguments are just so unbelievably ridiculous that the system has worked for over 100 years. It bears no resemblance to what it was 100 years ago. It's such a money-making industry now that it wasn't 100 years ago. And it's appalling that they say that. It's like students play for the love of the game, which is nonsense. It's like some of them do, yeah. But the ones that become professional athletes, they're there because they can't go pro right now. They have to play in college. And that's all they're waiting for is that opportunity to go play professionally. This idea that they get an education is thoroughly debunked in the documentary School that I just talked about. Like from the time they're in high school and before that, I mean, kids are getting to college who can't read. And they're talking about this. They get a college education out of it. Utter nonsense. So I'm very glad that this ruling has happened, and it's a victory that everything else around it changed. And it's become just these students are commodities within this system. And so this helps a bit. I mean, it's sure you guys the people can weep about college sports and the love of the game and all they want. That has been gone for a long time. And they need to get over it and need to change with the times, adapt with the times. Maybe the purity of it is gone. Well, that's too bad because that's what you did. You did that. You're reaping what you sow now. So, yeah. And I talked too about the idea of big university, essentially, which is now that higher education has become a money-making industry, and it's horrible, is what it is. It's awful and it's sad, and I talk about that in in my other vlog about school. But I'm very glad this has happened. It's at least a step toward treating these students with a bit of humanity and respect and giving them something for making lots of money for the school.
You know what, folks? He's absolutely right in this. I mean, it's getting to that point to where schools, no matter across the board, no matter who it is, might not be able to keep up unless they use an arbitrary number of $5,000 they pay the players each in this. My first thing would be Title IX. How is that going to work? They can't skirt the rules on that. The second one is, how do you divvy it up? I mean, let's take baseball, for example. They have partial scholarships. So how are you going to do that? Then your next obstacle is going to be, what about the other students there in any school you pick? Let's say you got in on a, for instance, a dance scholarship. They're going to be saying the exact same thing, where's my money? And before anybody says college athletics is different, it is one and the same. That sets up a lot of lawsuits. And that's the one thing not being talked about. And like the gentleman said in the video, I mean, it is a farce with a lot of student athletes. I mean, now obviously, let's take the Ivy League, for example. They saw this coming back in the early 1970s, and they decided to move down. And the NCAA accommodated them for that, by creating an entire separate division specifically for them in mind. And we're getting to this point now to where you're going to see it again, and hopefully I don't see it. And hopefully they come to their senses, but if not, we're going to see this play out on the congressional floor. Hey everybody, Lance here. Did you know I have a GoFundMe campaign? Stop on by and help out the real deal.
But the interests of the nation must always come before any personal considerations. From the discussions I have had with congressional and other leaders, I have concluded that because of the Watergate matter, I might not have the support of the Congress that I would consider necessary to back the very difficult decisions and carry out the duties of this office in the way the interests of the nation will require. I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body. But as president, I must put the interests of America first. America needs a full-time president and a full-time Congress, particularly at this time with problems we face at home and abroad. To continue to fight through the months ahead for my personal vindication would almost totally absorb the time and attention of both the President and the Congress in a period when our entire focus should be on the great issues of peace abroad and prosperity without inflation at home. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office. As I recall the high hopes for America with which we began this second term, I feel a great sadness that I will not be here in this office working on your behalf to achieve those hopes in the next 2.5 years. But in turning over direction of the government to Vice President Ford, I know, as I told the nation when I nominated him for that office 10 months ago, that the leadership of America will be in good hands.
You know, folks, I'm way too young for what happened back then 40 years ago, but it comes to a point you gotta look at it in perspective. Now, this week was the 40th anniversary of Richard Nixon's resignation. Now, for some of us some of the people lived through it, it was big news. Like somebody like me who didn't live through it, I didn't really understand it. But now I do. Now, as somebody in media, I've always said, If you're going to do this, you have a professional and moral obligation to tell the truth. And this was straight out pounding pavement that got to that point with Nixon's resignation. Now, will we ever see that again? I have no idea. But as far as politics, somebody being held that accountable, it needs to be done once again. And I don't care who the congressional person is, anything like that. It can be state, federal, you name it. Something like this, as far as a shakeup, needs to happen to put everybody back in their place. And I hate saying that, but it needs to be done. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, with some news and notes. I know on the Roku channel the uploads have been sporadic. A lot of that's been hardware issues I've been talking about for the last month or so. But everything's back on the beam, so we'll get that going once again. And I'm searching around now for some more content as far as the Roku channel, so that is in the works. Always stay updated on my webpage at Get Lansing Media or the Real Deal Network. And you're getting ready to see some big things happening in the next couple of months. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this week. I thank you for watching, and be careful, and remember, fear the real.